Welcome everybody to our new show, Over the Line. My name is Gerald, this is Justin. We're actually, Over the Line is actually going to be replacing couch today, so we're ditching the couch, going back to a table, hopefully look a little bit more professional. We're actually talking about this week's special Senate race in Alabama, and yeah, Justin.
Yeah, so the matchup was between Roy Moore, Republican candidate, and Doug Jones, Democratic candidate. And I got news for you people. For the first time in decades, we have a Democratic senator from Alabama. That's right, Doug Jones won the election. It came down to less than 2 percentage points in the total vote. Roy Moore did win with Republicans, obviously, and he won with older people and white people. Doug Jones won huge with black people and young people. And that was really one of the things that turned the tide for him. But also, let's be honest about this. The reason it even came so close and gave the Democratic candidate a chance, I believe, was the allegations of child molestation. There were several women that came out and said that, when they were much, much younger, Roy Moore molested them. And so those allegations definitely were big in the media. The mainstream media kept talking about it for weeks and weeks. Definitely hurt Roy Moore's chances of winning here. I honestly still was a little shocked by the results. I thought Roy Moore would still win in the deep red state of Alabama, but it was not meant to be. And during the election night, as close the vote was, they got a point where, some of those major news outlets projected Doug Jones to win. Roy Moore refused to concede, but because of Alabama's laws, you can't contest the vote unless it comes down to 0.5% or less difference, and the difference was not that small, so he was unable to contest, and thus Doug Jones wins. But,
yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Gerald, let's talk about the bigger implications of this. I mean, what does this mean for the Republican Party and Trump and all the voters out there?
Yeah, first off, homeboy's a creep. I mean, point blank and simple. The guy's a fucking creep, actually. I mean, reading some of the backstory on this, the police, and it's sad when you read some of this stuff, the police knew. Let's keep this guy away from schools and stuff and cheerleaders. Hangs around the local mall. I'm like, that's weird, dude. And the thing about it is it was ongoing. But of course, because how bass-ass backwards Alabama is, that's just how things roll. Sorry, any Alabama natives that are watching this. But, yeah, more on what you said, yeah, this definitely shakes Senate up a lot and makes things interesting, especially going into midterm elections within a year and a half from now or so.
Yeah, because now it's 49 Democrats to 51 Republicans in the Senate, so it's a razor-thin margin. So that, Republican majority is dwindling before we even get to the next elections.
And let's be honest here. As we saw with them trying to repeal health care, it's not uncommon for Republicans to jump ship and go to the other side. So, again, where's the influence going to lie here when they try to pass bigger bills? Of course they just got away with tax reform and stuff like that. But, there's so many things that I think are in their agenda. What did they do? Try to take another stab at, health care. Would they try to create their own Trump care again? How's that going to play? I don't know. I think, honestly, Republicans are going to have to go back to the drawing board on what their whole entire plan is.
So I think Republicans will have a pretty decent shot at getting their tax reform done. I honestly don't think they're going to be able to get anything else done that's major, especially not healthcare. We've already seen how they try to push healthcare. Now you got an extra Democrat in the Senate. That's not happening, I don't think. But I think it's interesting how the Senate race, it didn't really seem to come down to policy. It really just came down to, we had one guy with serious allegations against him versus a Democrat. And a lot of people in the state, again, it's a deep red state, and there's people out there that were thinking, man, I don't want to vote for a child molester, but gee, I really don't want to vote for a Democrat either. You had some of that going on with people, and it was a close vote.
And it's interesting when you think about that there are people that are willing, and again, politics is such a sick and twisted nest of just bullshit at times, that there are people literally choosing, well, I'd rather choose a child molester just over the guy just because he's a Democrat. That strikes a nerve with me, and it's really something I think Americans as a whole really need to look at. It's like, where are your values at? If you're voting for your values, and most Christians, if you claim you're a Christian, I'm pretty sure child molesters is up there with murderers and shit like that as people I'm not going to vote for. But again, the way politics work, it's like, I'm voting for that guy because he's a Republican, because he's a Democrat. And that's just the sickness of politics in this country, and I think around the world, honestly. But because we only report mainly on American politics, that's where we're going to go from there.
Yeah, and because the statute of limitations on those crimes, there was no way they really could have opened an official investigation into Roy Moore to, or convict him. I think that's what gave some people like plausible deniability of like, oh, well, maybe those things aren't true.
What took them so long to, report and everything? And I mean, again, I think it goes to the Weinstein situation where it's like someone came out and it was almost like a house of cards falling, no pun intended. But, a house of cards situation where it just everything came crumbling down. Now everybody's being hit. Matt Lauer, Jeremy Piven. So many names in the film industry and now politics that are being put out there. They're saying, hey, these people did something wrong and we want them to pay for it. Now, again, I'm not going to go into depth on why or why not they didn't report it early. In a lot of cases, they did do it earlier. And as we've seen with the, Alabama situation, there were reports that he did something, just nothing was done about it.
Yeah, and I could go off on a tangent about Roy Moore's political ideology and what his views actually were, which are pretty far out there.
Definitely pre-Jim Crow era.
But since he didn't win, I'm not even going to bother going there.
It's not even worth it.
What I do want to talk about is that another thing the mainstream media has been really ratcheting up is this talk about how this affects Trump, which I don't think it really affects him that much, other than the fact that he last minute backed Roy Moore. But you got to remember that Donald Trump originally backed Luther Strange in the primary against Roy Moore. Roy Moore always had the support from Steve Bannon, which was a little interesting. But I wouldn't by any stretch say Roy Moore was Trump's guy. It was just last minute he decided to back him because, we can't have another liberal.
Yeah, it was like lose a vote or gain a vote.
Yeah, that's what it really came down to for Trump, I think. But it's just, we're at the point now where also Trump tweeted after the results came in, and I was actually a little surprised by his response. He was actually congratulating Doug Jones on a hard-fought win. I thought that was a little different than I would have expected to see from Trump. He did also include in that tweet, I think the write-in votes had a lot to do with it, so of course he had to throw something weird in there, but no, I'll actually applaud Trump on this one, actually showing a little bit of class for once in his tweets.
Yeah, I mean, I think, going back to what you said, it does affect him a lot because, again, it's his agenda that's going to be trying to get passed through Congress. And that vote can definitely affect it. I mean, and again, going into midterm elections, how is this going to influence elections going forward? So, we'll see.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're definitely going to keep providing coverage when there's big races like this. But for now, this is the debut episode of Over the Line, and that's the news for recent. And stay tuned. We're going to have more coming to you.
And, going forward, we're actually going to be covering this in a wide range. Before we stuck solely to the couch, we're going to be planning on utilizing YouTube Live, where we'll be reporting live from certain scenes of issues happening, protests, outside of courthouses. We're going to try to get the news to you in the best way we can with the Over the Line platform. So don't forget to like and subscribe down below. Follow us all over social media and stay tuned.